Hello and welcome to the Retail Journey podcast. I'm Charles Greenhouse, one of your hosts.
And I am James Harris. And today we're speaking with Bryan Welch about purpose-driven businesses. Bryan, welcome to the Retail Journey.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I've been looking forward to this since I think I asked you to be on here. Purpose is such a big thing in life. It's important to have an overarching purpose, a purpose for why I'm getting out of bed today. And sometimes they're the same thing, sometimes they're not. What's your, where's your fire for purpose driven coming from, and what got you into it?
Well, what got me into it was more or less accidental. I was a journalist when I got out of college, and I went to work in the local newspaper business, which, felt very purpose driven, every kind of good,
Truth to
social
power
good,
and
truth to power, environment. I covered in the environment, and I covered government. And eventually I ended up running community newspapers. And by that time, it was a sort of habit as well as just a source of energy. I found, I found running businesses that every day are trying to make the world a better place really interesting, really engaging. And I, after 15 years, moved into the bigger media business, magazines and events and other things. But I was able to build a company around conscientious lifestyles. We had a big magazine called Mother Earth News. We had magazines about natural health, the environment, self-reliance. And again, I think my motivation was fundamentally that I found it more interesting to work on projects that had some larger meaning in the world, that were oriented toward making the world a better place. It was just more interesting for me to run that kind of business. And it evolved that way so that, today I'm around 50 years in business, and I've never been associated with a business that wasn't purpose-driven in that way.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
I love being able to follow interest into maturing into passion, and then that just becomes a much greater motivator, probably creating your best work. Whereas sometimes people who don't have an interest and don't have a passion, their work suffers the whole time.
That's true. And if we're working on things that have a deeper meaning for us, we have more energy. Our focus is better. I'm pretty sure that I've been more successful doing this kind of thing because of my fundamental interest in it.
Totally.
The other side of that equation is also fascinating to me, which is, businesses like mine have always attracted people who were out to change the world with this sense of mission, but who were motivated first by passion and less so by interest. Unfortunately, that leads to a kind of idealism burnout.
Passion can run out.
Because the world's a big, complicated place. And to see it change in any significant way in one lifetime is kind of unlikely, really. But if you're motivated by the exercise of trying to make things better, and if you're motivated by a fundamental interest in making things better, that it's more endurable, more sustainable.
And I think sometimes when we think about making the world a better place, we think about changing the world en masse today.
Right.
Versus I want to be a positive influence. I want to be a positive light in my little corner of the world. Right. I think sometimes we try to, it has to be all or nothing. But I can influence everybody in this room today. There's a lot of people I can't influence.
I've been really attracted to the mind space of becoming the type of person that, has the impact that I'm wanting, that lives in a way that will result in the thing I'm trying to push.
Isn't that's such a profound observation, I think. I personally believe that our intention in every moment is changing the world in minute ways. And if I look over the course of my life at people who have influenced me, sometimes, it was a fleeting conversation at a counter in a coffee shop, or sitting in an airport waiting for a plane. Fleeting conversations, but a conversation with someone who kindled something in me that ended up being very motivational. And so I don't think we know where our greatest impact might be over the course of a lifetime, but that moment by moment intention is, I think, where I think it's profound.
That's where I feel like people I think of who are purposeful, like they're present to that moment, and they are where they are, and they have intent as they're, having a conversation, trying to do things. And I've certainly had moments where I was very intentional and had moments where I was very not intentional, and unintentionally created things that, like, boy, I wish I had not said that. Boy, I wish I had not impacted that person in that way.
Right.
And only afterwards do I have a kind, loving friend come up to me like, "Do you realize that they're upset with you?" I'm like, no idea. And so I know we all have, it's a kind of a constant act of rebalancing when it comes to walking with purpose and intention. I'd love to hear, your thoughts or reflection on that as you've walked that way professionally, but are also human and have your ups and downs.
Oh, to say the least. I believe it's a matter of practice. I think it's something one can practice.
Yeah.
I'm personally a meditator.
Yeah.
And one of the most basic and fundamental and enduring things I think that comes from a meditation practice is just in sitting and watching your own thoughts and feelings non-judgmentally.
Yeah.
You develop a kind of understanding of your reactivity, and that reactivity decreases. You're more able to consider your reactions because you get to know yourself in a way that allows you
what your reactions have been.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
And you're able to create some space between the phenomenon and your reaction to the phenomenon. And in that space, we, I think, can make better decisions. But as you say, not every time.
Right. Yeah. It's more like baseball,
Yeah.
because 350 batting average is pretty great. And anywhere where I failed 65% of the time and still be like, hey, I was pretty good, Charles.
World class.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
the sport.
When I teach meditation, I tell people the absolute first step, most fundamental thing, is friendliness toward yourself, so that you're able to observe yourself in a non-judgmental way and not go down a spiral of negative feelings toward yourself.
That the non-judgmental part of that, because I meditate as well, not nearly as consistently as I once did, and I'm going to fix that. But that noticing without judging, it sounds so simple, but once you start doing it, then you can start doing it out here. And I realized, at least in my life, 10, 15 years ago when I started playing around with that, was I'm burning a lot of energy judging people.
For sure.
It didn't, probably not consciously, it's just habitual. But it took that slowing down to notice, like, oh, I'm doing this to them, I'm doing this to me. And if I just stop doing it, it's gone. It's much more freeing.
And the amount of time and energy it takes, the amount of attention it takes to run an appraisal of every single thought we have is, it's a heavy burden.
It really is.
And distracts us from other things.
Makes us not present. Yeah. So I met you in the context of one of your more recent endeavors, the Consumer Insights Summit. Can you tell us? I'm sorry.
Consumer Impact Summit.
Impact Summit.
Yeah.
I knew that. Tell us about it. How, what was the seed that grew into what it is? And just for people that aren't familiar with the Consumer Impact Summit, what you all do.
Sure. Well, as a product of the kind of businesses I've run, I've been probably 25 years involved in various purpose-driven or impact-driven business organizations, right? 20 years ago, there was the Social Venture Network. More recently, there was the B Corporation movement, conscious capitalism. And they've all been inspiring to me and engaging. And I've developed many very important relationships through them. But one of the weaknesses of those events, from my perspective, was always the amount of time we spent talking about why we run impact-driven businesses and talking about, in a perfect world, there could be this or that or the other thing, where the most important learning experiences I had were my conversations with other operators about how we were solving the daily puzzles, how we were making the necessary compromises, just the sort of thing that you all teach all the time here, and the sort of thing that you bring to your clients at High Impact. I think, there was a real need in the community of impact-driven businesses for those kinds of discussions. So my friend Jeff Clapper, who runs 8th and Walton here in Bentonville, he and I had been talking for some time about how we'd like for there to be a conference that was very focused in that way, where the presenters were almost all people with operating roles in businesses getting the job done. And so I had some extra time a couple of years ago, and Jeff and I had just been casually chatting about these things. And Jeff said, let's do it. And so we started what we call consumer impact events, I guess about a year and a half ago. Had the first event in September last year. And, I've been through several startup experiences. And so I always keep a parachute packed. But we, after last year's event, we had 230 some attendees and 55 really cool speakers. And it just generated really lovely energy. And so both of us wanted to do it again. And so the next one's coming up this coming September.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to have a small part there last year. And it was a great event. Met people there that I've stayed in touch with, heard things that we're still using, implementing. So really great, especially for a first year. There's a million things that can go wrong in an event, and it was very well done. I imagine you'll see a lot of growth this year, and we're excited to be a part of it again.
I'm glad. I think we are seeing a lot of growth, and I think almost everyone there felt that energy. And from my perspective, a lot of that energy came from this geographic setting, from Northwest Arkansas.
It's a unique market like that.
It's unique. The energy for business and for entrepreneurism in this region, I think it's more concentrated than anywhere else I've ever been. And virtually every business person I meet in Northwest Arkansas wants fundamentally to be part of a business that's values driven, that shares their values.
Something bigger than you.
Something bigger than you, that exact thing.
Yeah.
And so there's all this local energy combined with a lot of purpose-driven business veterans who come from, Northern California or Oregon or the East Coast, who are really unfamiliar with the business environment of Northwest Arkansas. And, it was a surprise to me. I didn't see that going into the event, but both groups in our constituency were discovering a new source of energy and inspiration, and I think enjoying each other very much. And so it was fun.
Yeah, I feel like it may be naive. I'm interested in your perspective. This, a non-judgmental view of your thoughts. The concept in meditation. I feel like in this space, we're talking about our why for the thing that's bigger than us. There's energy behind that. And the Consumer Impact Summit was really about the how. Like, then how, or how might we this and how might we that? And that just feels like a very non-judgmental assessment of our actions, our practices, our what's working here, what's not working there. And it's not about, measuring sticks and who's best here. It's just like, how can we all improve? Because if purpose-driven brands are doing more and doing better, then there's their purposes are being better yet fulfilled.
Yeah.
And there's a cumulative impact on our planet, our environment, our neighborhoods, our community, those that we get to work with, the consumer themselves. Is it a bit naive, or it feels like there's a uniqueness here where in Northwest Arkansas, I feel more so than not, people are just trying to be better, trying to find ways to be better, and delighted to help each other along that journey.
You know, the energy generated by business is so different than the cliche about it. There's sort of, among people who aren't business people, who have not run businesses, there's this notion that the primary motivation is greed, or
Totally.
that that there's something sordid or dirty about the whole thing. You know, there's
My high school brain, I chose music education as my major because business majors were clearly just greedy and they didn't know what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But they knew they wanted money.
Yeah.
Obviously, that changed to business, but yeah, I had that exact, just sort of misconception.
right. What I found, and I was like you, I mean, I was a poet, I was a creative writing major.
Yeah.
All the high earning.
Yeah. Exactly. We really had a very clear view of our career.
Yes, exactly.
And then, I'm at a local newspaper. I get promoted into a business position, and I was I was surprised and sort of immediately gratified
Yeah.
by the clean energy that's generated in a task where you get measured every day,
Yeah.
where you can aggregate resources that you can then use to, based on your own values, how do you want to allocate those resources?
Yeah.
And what good would you like to do in the world with the money that you're making? I found that really gratifying. I sort of found, I think, a vocation in that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it better. And the conversations about how we do these things, I've been on the boards of nonprofits. I've run one nonprofit for a short period of time. You're always talking about the why. You raise money based on the why. You have a board full of people who are talking about the why. And the arguments and the competing for perspective is endless. And personally, I find that quite frustrating. I didn't take to it. It's not, I love the practicality of business. I love the puzzle solving of business. And I love taking the resources and the energy that businesses can aggregate and pursuing higher goals with them.
Yeah.
And I find that combination,
I'm sure there's people out there right now that are rolling their eyes saying, "Oh, purpose driven. Yeah, wait till the money doesn't come in, then we'll know your purpose or whatever."
Yeah.
But I think about it a little more strategically. It's not uncommon refrain: culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
Right. So good cultures have all kinds of research that show us that people want to work at a company that's doing something beyond earning money and paying them.
Absolutely.
That's causing something. So it's an easy thing to, even if you just want it for the practicality nature of, hey, we stand for this. And then, I can lockstep,
Yeah.
Well, not to mention that you then end up attracting employees who are values driven in their lives. They're less likely to steal. They work harder. They show up earlier. They stay later when they need to. You're building higher quality resources because you've established a higher quality company.
Yeah.
I love that. And we've got to take ownership. And when you really think about ownership, you want to have a better impact on those around you, on your own life, your family, your neighbors, of course, your clients and your coworkers. And it's just it becomes not a spiral down, but like a building block that just accumulates over a career.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think we may be entering an era now when a company's value system may become a more important component in its data set
Yeah.
because we don't know how it's going to evolve, but it seems pretty likely that intelligent agents are going to start representing and working for consumers.
Yeah.
And when that happens, the
The
whole
real is now revealed.
the process of shopping, everybody wants to do business with the people who share their values. And those values have been sort of easy to blur and to misrepresent in the past. But artificial intelligence is very good at looking at all the details and comparing one company to another.
It feels like there's no downside to that. Like I love that. I picture you eat at a restaurant, you have no problem eating there, and then you work at that same restaurant, you stop eating there. Like that reveals something is wrong. Something was terribly wrong. That you would never have known because the front that was put up was, frankly edible. And then when you get back there, you see what actually happens. Like, yeah, I'm not eating here. And I feel like it's so good for that to be known, like for it to be unknown, for it to be a thing misrepresented. Is awful, and it always will come out in the wash eventually. And to your point, the ability to trick is gone, going away quickly. I hope it goes away entirely, where it's just like, I hope you have good. And the deeper you dig, the more good you find across everything that you do as an organization, so that you will continue to succeed. You'll have sustainable growth.
Right. And I assume you're both familiar with B corporations and what they represent. So
I'm not sure everyone in the audience would.
Well, we can, simply put, since 2008, in 2008, B Lab was formed, and it was a nonprofit that established the certification process for both, social, environmental, human resources practices, so that if your company can pass this pretty rigorous assessment of how well you take care of your people, how well you serve your community, how well you care for the environment, whatever business you're in, then you can be certified as a B corporation. I bring this up, and so I certified my first company as a B corporation the year that B corporations were invented, in 2008. And it was the 8th. There's the number again. It was the 8th B corporation. There are 8,000 across the world today. So I was on board for this idea really early on. It just seemed like what I hoped was consumers would start recognizing the logo, the B corporation logo, and that consumer behavior would shift. And, that hasn't happened to the degree that those of us there at the time hoped it would.
Right.
But if you think about it from an AI perspective, there are, in the current assessment, I think there's something like 1,700 individual areas that are assessed, scoring areas, something like that in the assessment. So it's a lot of work. This
isn't a rubber stamp
that
you pay for.
And, a consumer can't begin to dig in to that amount of data, comparing one company to another.
An agent can.
But an agent can.
Interesting.
And so all those data are available to companies that have certified themselves to put in the front of their data set to be immediately noticed by the bots as they roam around.
We're starting to work on that ourselves because we manage digital listings for our clients, and agentic commerce is the thing now. As far back as like October, I believe, of last year, 30% of traffic coming to certain retailer websites was coming from ChatGPT alone.
Really? Wow, that's a huge number.
It's a really huge number.
So how humans shop, it sounds like it's changing in a big way and very rapidly.
Very rapidly.
And I think, as you're saying, it's going to make it much harder to present a manufactured identity for your company.
Yep.
There's going to have to be some legitimacy there, because now we have this presence with us, this other intelligence that can look at the details,
And the irony of like AI generated images and videos deepening the conviction on, I want to see something real and authentic. Once you see and feel like, oh, this was fake, I've been duped, it's like, oh, I hate that.
Well, I think we're going to see that in customer service too, as everything goes to agents and bots. People are going to want human interaction.
There's going to be a higher value placed on it, isn't there?
Yeah. So I don't think AI is ever going away, but I do think we will start to live more intentionally, like fragmented lives where this is my tech time, this is my garden time, this is when I'm out in something real. Now, I mean, obviously there's the fear of people talking to bots instead of humans and things like that. I just think there's going to be a large kind of swing back to, okay, this tool is great. It helps me be more efficient, come up with ideas, but I want to be around people too. I want to have a shopping experience that is flesh and blood.
For sure. Yeah. I was listening to something they were talking about how medical care might change, and there's the idea, I mean, that a huge percentage of all the surgeries could be done through robots by the best human surgeon alive. No matter where you are,
right?
Yeah.
If you have access to the intelligence and the robots, those surgeries can all be done by the world expert. But of course, when we go to the doctor and we want to explain how we're feeling, I think we want to look at a pair of human eyes across the room who's understanding that.
How vulnerable can you be with a machine?
Yeah,
right.
I don't guess we don't know yet, but
we'll see. And then, like, you may not know the answer to this, but what about liability? I mean, how do you? I guess you could sue the company that used the bot, but usually, like doctors have liability insurance for a reason.
For sure. And I think there's so many questions. It's an exciting and mysterious time.
Yeah.
Even I listen to lots of stuff about AI, and even the world experts.
Yeah, they're kind of
they actually don't know how it's making itself.
Yeah,
wow.
Which is a wild possibility.
I'm always drawn to those that are able to admit that they don't know.
Yeah,
as opposed to the definitive. This is how this is going to happen.
Yeah, we have a speaker who just confirmed yesterday as a speaker. Kimberly Schenk is her name, and she has a company called, I believe it's Novi.
Yeah.
A new company, fairly new company. But Kimberly graduated from MIT as an engineer, went into the Air Force, ended up a captain in the Air Force working on top secret AI projects. She did that for 10 years. And then she founded this company. And I'm so excited to think about what she will have to share. Because, her company, Novi, advises both retailers and brands about how to prepare for these agents. For agentic
availability,
shopping.
Search.
Interaction. Exactly.
Yeah.
I met Kimberly at Expo West this year. I thought she was very impressive.
She sure is, yeah. And Alistair Dorward, a mutual friend of ours, is an advisor for her company.
Okay.
And so they may do a presentation together, which
that's funny because I saw Alistair, went over and said hi. He said, "Let me introduce you to somebody."
I thought it might happen that way. That's what I was thinking. That's probably how that worked out.
World.
Yeah.
That the retail can be, and really,
But that's an interesting pairing too, because Alistair, who spoke last year, you probably met him at
we sat. He's one of the ones I was referring to that I stayed in touch with that I met at the Impact Summit.
So Alistair has been the founding CEO of half a dozen consumer product brands, purpose-driven consumer product brands. That's his career. That's his specialty,
including Method.
Right.
Like not drop in the bucket brands.
No, founding CEO of Method. And he gave a tour de force talk last year, basically by talking about challenges that he faced in his companies and how he and his teams solved the puzzles along the way, the bad luck, the good luck. And I thought it was a fantastic talk because it's real world experience. what was I'm trying to think. One of
My favorite part of his story, because I was there for that. He said when they were direct to consumer,
Right.
so their package was just a brown box that kind of opened up, and it is for drops, for laundry drops and dishwasher drops. He said, so we started approaching retail and like, wait a minute, how do we do packaging? And for the life cycle of the business, normally that's on the front side if you're starting in traditional retail. That stood out to me as something that was kind of interesting.
And his experience in that realm is also very interesting because at Method, the whole way Method got into Target, which was that brand's huge breakthrough, was Target was redesigning stores. And Target's design people were looking for brands that were packaged in a way that worked in their new design framework. And Method, one of Method's founders was this design wonk and was very into the shape of the bottles and the colors and everything else. And it meshed perfectly with Target's redesign. And that was their breakthrough. All the ways it can happen or not happen. It's really fun.
I mean, we're the Retail Journey podcast. It's nonlinear. There's not just one journey. There's not just one path. Generally speaking, our audience is largely on the supplier side, in this day-to-day interaction of trying to solve and create value across retail, or on the retailer side doing the same thing. Your lens has been on purpose-driven brands. I'd love to hear your perspective. Like if you were in either one of those seats, what are the things that you would want to know from your experience that would make each of them better on the merchant side and on the sort of sales and supplier side?
That's funny because I think what I would observe are almost contradictory statements for the two sides, because I'm envisioning a more productive relationship between the two.
Yeah.
On the supplier side, I think one of the great myths is if your purpose or if your design or if your specific flavor is wonderful enough, you're going to get premium pricing. So you create a business that's creating a product that has to be premium priced, but you're going into a category that has very little premium in it, and they end up getting torpedoed at the point where they're ready, when they try to scale. Right. And in the purpose-driven business community, that's epidemic.
Oh, totally.
Everybody thinks, well, this is so pure and so wonderful.
Right.
They're going to love spending more on it.
And, the retailer, neither the retailers nor the shoppers seem to be ready to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
But then if I look at it from the retailer perspective, I would say more attention to the details of how the products are created could create more productive partnerships between the people who created the supply chain, the manufacturing process, the ingredient set, and the people who have it on their shelves and are selling it to the consumers.
Yeah.
And of course, big retail needs to run according to formulae, obviously, because of scale. Yeah. But I think they've also painted over some levels of detail that could be quite productive, both for the suppliers and the retailers themselves, if they were willing to engage a little more in the complexity of how products are created.
Yeah, I think I've seen, some of the best conversations in that, which it is hard. Right? Yeah. It is hard, but you have to, if you're walking through someone's manufacturing facility and watching the friction points, you can together solve them if you're retail and supplier.
Yes.
I've had some of those where we're walking around and we are talking to the operations manager. You're watching the sales guy just sweat bullets because the ops manager isn't sugarcoating a darn thing. He's just like, I totally hate when you guys, and he's just, why can't you? And how come you haven't? And they're unloading. I've brings me an enormous amount of joy. As a merchant at the time, watching the But at the end of the day, if what they're saying is like, oh, well, if we make this decision differently, then all of that scrap right there goes away. And you know what that scrap actually represents? That my customer definitely cares about is cost.
Yeah.
There's a lot of customers that want to care about not wasting for the sake of the environment,
Right.
but might not be willing to pay extra for that. And they sure as heck are willing to pay less for anything.
Yeah.
And if you happen to also improve the impact on the environment, it's like, guys, this is impact. This is where you can do something that truly triple bottom line is shared value creation and the thing that's most valuable. And it's hard work. You have to be able to understand the context of like, okay, well, when orders come in this way, they create this amount of tension and then this amount of waste and this impact. And it's obvious when you're sitting there, when you're in their context, like, wow, that's a waste of time. Why don't we just change our minimum order quantity to this? Or why don't we not put the package on the shelf that way? We can put it on this way. And suddenly hundreds of thousands of dollars are solved because Walmart's huge.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting how many layers of interpretation and training and handling are required between a supplier and the retailer?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this town
That's
is absolutely packed
That's the brass tacks. Yeah.
with people who are somewhere in that relationship chain because it's so hard for a big retailer and a supplier to just have a constructive exchange directly. It becomes very difficult. And
for sure.
That's surprising and interesting to me. We had a case I was close to last year where a seafood company was, had a director of sales who was clearly getting paid on expanding sales volume, right? And that person was working, I assume, through a broker with the big retailer. And the CFO just notices that their bottom line is getting consumed by waste. Mm-hmm. Their expiry, the seafood was going bad.
Right.
Yeah. But because of the people involved and because of how they were incentivized, it took an outside consultant to come in and say, hey, you need to pull distribution back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a way that this can be adjusted. Let's look at the data. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I assume you all probably tackle this kind of thing all the time. Let's look at the data and we can target the distribution. Yeah. You're going to end up selling 2/3 as much fish and you're going to end up making 3 times as much money.
Yeah,
exactly.
And also, once that fish is thrown away, you know what it's never doing? Nourishing a human,
or
it is gone. It's no longer.
And
it's waste.
Food waste is a bit of an environmental issue as well.
Yeah, I remember the early stage. I was at John Brown University, going through school projects, and the cobblestone project started to come and evolve. And it's like, how do we stop and solve food waste? And it was just mind-boggling to see how much of food that's like still super good, but at the time, we're 48 hours away from this not being at all edible.
Yeah.
And you can't keep the menu whole and expect to use it, right? We know that this food's going to go bad.
Yeah.
And we made so much soup that was like awesome.
Yeah.
But it wasn't on the menu, wasn't the plan, but it's how you solve. And I think there's a creativity. Like, what's it look like to walk into a situation with some humility, with the people that have the ability to influence decisions? And my hope is that merchants and suppliers alike can start thinking about, I wonder where it's not about banging your fist on the table for reduced cost. Although there's times where that's totally necessary. And I've for sure done it.
So you were a bit of a desk banger.
But it's like, where can I actually remove cost and then share in the value that's created?
Yeah. Is there room? I'm just curious about this. I'm not passing judgment in any way. But is there room to build more mentorship into the merchant's role? Are there ways that we could engage that would help the merchants exchange information with the suppliers in more educational and
honestly, I love where my mind goes immediately. Consumer Impact Summit, like a sort of round table of removing waste from systems with merchants and suppliers. And I think
that would be pretty cool.
That sounds really cool.
What's key is it's not like, if it's your merchant, it's hard to have maybe a specific conversation because then there's a cost change that you must submit. If it's someone else, then we can actually find ways to reduce costs. And I think there would be delight in the ability to share. And I think what you'll find,
maybe one of you wants to moderate that panel.
Be delighted to. And I think if you ask, there's a misconception on where merchants' desire to innovate and collaborate comes from. Some of it is earned because your plate as a merchant overflows with abundance every day.
Yeah.
Emails are one of those things. There is never going to be enough time. And I'm sorry for everyone that emailed me when I was a merchant that I still never responded to. There's just there's a reality here. Some are actually very good at it. I don't know how. But
not to mention the girls back in college whose texts you never returned.
Right.
That's also
I don't think I had that problem.
No.
That wasn't an issue. I love that. But ruthless prioritization is one of, I think, the fundamental ingredients in being a best-in-class merchant. You have to be able to ruthlessly prioritize. And sometimes that uninvites a collaborative conversation that does need to be had.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit incumbent on the merchants to make sure you're clear on I want to collaborate. I want these things. I'm strategically invested in removing waste on behalf of our customers. It's the entire flywheel. That was the beginning of the flywheel. You remove costs from the system, you lower retail, you sell more, which allows you to remove costs. And it's really productive.
That's why Walmart exists, isn't it?
I mean, it is a simple idea of collaboration, of how might we actually make a lot by selling a lot, not by selling it for a lot.
Yeah.
And come alongside the consumer instead of seeing how much can I get out of them.
Right.
And that whole concept is beautiful. I think there's a little bit incumbent on the supplier to push in to the conversation, to have the courage to say, hey, I want to figure these things out, but I know we can't do it alone. We're going to need to work together. Are you open to this conversation?
Well, and I know one of the things that you all do in your business, which is absolutely critical, is educating the suppliers on how the retailer thinks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a, naivete is epidemic, of course, among small to medium-sized suppliers.
Yeah.
It's very hard if you haven't been very close to a big retailer.
Oh, yeah.
It's very hard to
Why on earth would they do that?
Right. All the time.
The most common,
all the time. And the workload that a merchant carries is unimaginable, probably, to a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a similar, on the merchant side. Why on earth would they do that?
Right.
Of course.
And operator to merchant.
Why do they do that?
In those training programs, they made us early days. I spent 8 weeks in the store stocking shelves. And before I did that, I'm sorry, I think I've admitted it on the show before, I just was man, why are associates in the store so lazy to not execute my beautifully planned modular exactly as it was intended? And then I was in the store setting my beautifully planned modular, and it's oh, yeah, this doesn't fit. There's a 0% chance I'm doing this. I'm going to shove it right here and move on to the next.
Yeah, not to mention the workload that person is carrying.
100%.
And
the one that stuck out to me is the chicken nuggets that were not meant to be in the sock dump bin. Nowhere on a playbook was it hey, someone's going to go to the deli, eat a couple nuggets, and then just dump the rest in this sock bin. And you know who has to deal with it? Whoever walked by it, saw it, was
I'm sorry.
I don't think, was that you? I don't think those chicken nuggets are supposed to be there. We need to clean this up, figure out what socks are contaminated. And that's not part of the plan,
No.
But it's retail. It's real life. It's humans.
Humans.
We are starting to approach on time. So before we do our lightning round, tell anybody who should be at the Consumer Impact Summit and how do they get information?
Well, I think anyone who's interested in aligning their business life with their values would get a lot out of being at the Consumer Impact Summit. And the September 15th to 17th, at the Ledger in Bentonville. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah. And, after 50 years, I find these stories and the people involved very inspiring.
Yeah.
Every time I met 2 or 3 people yesterday whose stories really lit me up.
Yeah.
Should I tell one real quickly?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So one of our speakers is a woman. Her story is she was getting divorced. She was becoming a single mom. She didn't know how she's going to make a living. She was in a panic. Her brother said, you always told mother that her salad dressing should be in stores. You should make salad dressing and sell it to your neighbors. She started doing that, and she went to Whole Foods and got empty clementine boxes and put the dressing in the clementine boxes because they were very pretty. And then she would deliver to her neighbors, and she started doing this. And then one day the produce manager at her Whole Foods said, clementine season is over. I can't get any more boxes for you.
Oh, no.
But what were you doing with them?
Yeah. Why do you want all these clementine
Right.
boxes?
And she said, well, I make salad dressing and sell it to my neighbors. And he said, well, bring some. And he showed it to the store manager, and they liked it. They took it to the region. And a few months later, she was in the Whole Foods
Good.
region.
Uh-huh.
Then she went nationwide, and either now or in the very near future, they'll be in several hundred Walmart stores.
Oh, I love that story.
Yeah.
Dressed up dressing. I
That
believe.
sounds right. That sounds right. That's a great story.
And so stories like that, they light me up, and that's what it's all about.
That's great. So our lightning round, we like three quick questions. First one, what are you reading, watching, listening to?
Yeah. So let's start with listening to. I've been doing a deep dive on artificial intelligence. I think it's, just fascinating. And I think it's an evolutionary step for our species. And I think it's going to change almost everything.
Everything.
And none of us knows in what ways, but it's, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Reading, I just finished a book called Fluke, which I'm not going to remember the name of the author right now. I'm not particularly good at that, but there aren't a lot of books called Fluke.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a new book, and it talks about how misled we are by our notion that everything that arises in the world or that happens in the world is a direct result of a simple set of circumstances. So why do some people become billionaires? Well, the idea is they were smarter, they worked harder. If you actually look at the data, you look at how many Amazons were started at other times and their relative engineering quality, and if you look at all the other variables, it was timing. Amazon is Amazon because it happened to be started at exactly the right moment for Amazon to be started. And, he does a wonderful job of looking into the statistics and proving in mathematical ways that luck is absolutely huge in this universe.
Yeah.
And that when we make decisions or read the data or draw conclusions from these linear narratives that we like to create, generally speaking, we're mistaken.
False comfort.
And it causes us to go forward in making bad decisions.
Correlations, not causation.
Yes, exactly.
As we're data nerds here. We really like using data.
Yeah.
And that reality is one that's always like cause for pause. Like that spreadsheet's not a vision into the future.
No.
It's a reality of what has happened.
Yes.
There's still live dynamics that are always going to change.
Yeah.
So that's where, judgment, relationship, strategy, looking around corners.
Well, yeah. And don't we like to leach all of the complexity out of the history, out of the historical data?
Right. Oh, totally.
And believe that it represents some sort of solid state. But of course it doesn't.
Yeah. Speaking of reading, I've been reading Bryan Welch on Substack. Everybody should check that out.
Nice.
A lot of inspirational writing. I've enjoyed a lot.
Well, speaking of inspiration, the next one is your biggest retail blunder that you learned from.
Oh, let's see. Super interesting. So, I think at retail. So for a long time, I ran a magazine called Mother Earth News, and at the time, it was really pretty significant magazine.
I remember it was
a couple of 100,000 copies at at retail, just newsstand, not mention subscription and everything else. And the gospel in the magazine business at that time was that you had to have people on your cover.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tried all kinds of people. We tried, gardeners and farmers and celebrities, and we weren't getting great results. We were out of people. We ran a loaf of fresh bread on a cover, and it killed.
Yeah,
And so then we started finally actually starting to look at data and measuring and trying different things and running A/B splits across the newsstand. And what we discovered was that for our magazine, it was quite complex, but Mother Earth News had about 30% of its readers described themselves as very liberal politically, and about 30% of its readers described themselves as very conservative politically.
Steadying type. Yeah, that's fascinating.
And so every time we ran a person on the cover,
lost 30%.
we lost 30%. Automatically lost 30%.
But bread.
So it came down to bread,
Yeah.
fresh vegetables, and red barns.
Really?
All those three things.
Here's very inoffensive.
Everybody likes fresh bread, fresh vegetables, and red barns. But here's going back to the complexity part of the conversation, not berries.
Yeah, I can't have those.
For some reason, fruits and vegetables of every other kind sold great. But every time we tried to run a cover with berries on it, it didn't do well. And I had a retailer, a guy in the grocery business, tell me. He said it might be because their shelf life is so short,
Right.
and so people have some sort of deep psychological aversion to something that's either not going to be ripe or it's going to be overripe.
Or if they're not going to eat it that day, it's going to go bad.
Exactly right. Yeah, I don't know.
Today, so I'm not picking up the bag.
But I went. Years went by with me doing the wrong thing on the covers of these magazines.
This is so fast.
And so, that was my biggest blunder. And it was several blunders, many blunders, one after another. Years. Yeah, that's right.
So, last question: what are you over the next 12 months? What are you really looking forward to? What are you excited about? Anticipating?
Well, on the Consumer Impact Summit, it's so fun as the agenda comes together because I get to meet all these people who are speaking and have conversations and talk about their message and work on that, collaborate on that. And that's just huge fun. So I'm very excited about that. And I had a book come out last week. It's about grief and how it connects people. And as a result,
What's the book title? And where
called-
can we buy it?
it's called The Gift of a Broken Heart.
Yeah.
And you can buy it, I think, everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
Walmart.com?
I think so, yeah.
Let's go.
And as a result, I've been around talking to people about that topic, and I'm meeting dozens and dozens of people who have been carrying some kind of really profound grief that they haven't shared. And that's a super...
That's the loneliest place in the world.
Wow. And so moving
What a beautiful thing.
to hear their stories. And so my year's shaping up great. So
That's great.
Thanks for writing it and for having the courage to step into something that ironically alienates, but many have it in common.
yes, well, everybody has it in common.
Right.
Every human being grieves.
Everybody does.
Everybody loses. My son died in 2013. He was a drug addict, and we had a really, devastating. Both the disease and his death were devastating.
Yeah.
But it also opened up, in a way, it relieved me of the responsibility for going around seeming invulnerable.
Right.
Because I can't.
This isn't a burden I can just shoulder and walk around with.
The mask came off.
I had to. Yeah.
I found that comparing loss, there's no fruit in that. But we all have it in common. Not the same by any means, but in 2014, my firstborn son died.
Oh,
But it was soon after birth.
yeah.
But still.
You can't compare one thing to the other.
Correct.
I try, when people tell me about their dog who died, I do my best. No, I do. Early on, after you lose a kid, that is really hard to deal with. But over the years, I've really worked on opening my heart to the fact that those feelings are real. And, a pet dog can fill a huge role in a person's life.
It's all about attachment, how attached
Absolutely.
are you to the thing.
Well, then going to their depth of pain and offering it also back.
Yes.
But yes, right after it was.
But right after, when you're bereaved
my
parent.
wife on that, it's oh my gosh, people.
Yeah.
So we're the same. My dog just died.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, and it isn't that crass, but people, and that was hard first. The other thing that's hard is people who can't resist talking about their brilliant children constantly. When it's fresh, when you've lost a kid and it's fresh,
I bet
that also is difficult. And but my wife and I also admit we also have a daughter, and she's been super successful. And we admit to each other that if both of our kids had turned out that way, we would think we had done it.
That's true. That's insightful.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Bryan, for joining us. I've been looking forward to this, and I had a lot of fun.
I did too. Thank you for having me.
And always thank you for joining us. You can always get any of our podcasts, video or audio, on our website, highimpactanalytics.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you.